Hello everyone, and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Annika Noelle felt the baby move for the first time while alone in the makeup trailer on the set of The Bold and the Beautiful, staring at her reflection beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. The flutter was so faint she assumed it was anxiety, the same twitchy pulse she experienced before big performances. She touched her palm just below her navel and muttered, "Hey little one," as she had practiced in the mirror for weeks. The flutter returned stronger, like a hidden knock from the inside. She smiled so widely that the makeup artist inquired whether she had just received good news about a narrative. Annika merely nodded, frightened that if she spoke loudly, the moment would pass. It was week 16. By week 20 everyone knew. Congratulations! The headline screamed across every tabloid and gossip website. Annika Noelle, a B&B performer, reveals her pregnancy with her husband's child with excitement. The photo they ran was from her co-star's gender reveal party, pink confetti frozen in midair, her hands holding a belly that had just recently begun to round, her husband Eli's arms wrapped around her from behind, both of them laughing as if they'd won something special. The internet exploded with loving emojis and crying gifs, as well as strangers telling her she was glowing. She read every message twice because for once the focus was soft rather than sharp. She'd waited so long for this. Not only the baby, though God, the baby, but the sense that her life was finally catching up to the daydream she'd had since childhood. Annika was 38, recently married after a decade of wrong turns and almosts, and her career as Hope Logan had kept her renowned enough to keep booked but never quite satisfied. She'd spent years beaming on red carpets while inside counting failed pregnancy tests like casualties in a private conflict. When the two pink lines emerged, Sarah and Eli sat on the bathroom floor and cried so deeply that they had to repeat the test to ensure that the tears had not smeared the results. At first, the pregnancy went exactly as expected. She breezed through the first trimester with nothing but a metallic feeling in her mouth and an odd appetite for green olives packed with blue cheese. The doctor referred to her as low risk and a dream patient. Eli transformed the guest room into a nursery the color of storm clouds after Annika mentioned it felt tranquil, like the ocean before rain. They chose the name Leora, which means I have light in Hebrew, and fought playfully about whether the crib mobile should play Bach or Billie Holiday. Annika continued to work since Hope Logan was embroiled in a sensational paternity story, and the authors promised to cover the bump with clever purses until the hiatus. Then came the 20-week anatomy scan. The ultrasound technician was young, chatty, and narrated everything she saw. There's the heart for perfect chambers. Spine looks gorgeous, and let's check the brain. The room went silent save for the wet throb of Leora's heartbeat filling the speakers like a drum. The technician's voice flattened. Annika knew before the doctor spoke. "I'm going to get the doctor." She had worked on a soap opera for years and could discern tone shifts the same way others could read faces. The doctor sat down, turned the screen toward them, and indicated to an area where the brain hadn't closed properly. He spoke of anencephaly, nearly invariably fatal. Most newborns do not survive delivery. If they do, it might be hours or days. There is no fix. There are no surgeries. There are just two options for carrying to term. Eli asked inquiries that Annika couldn't hear above the tremendous roar in her ears. She stared at the television, at the silhouette of the baby who had kicked her so strongly that morning that she burst out laughing in the middle of a scene. The infant already had Eli's nose and her own obstinate chin. The baby who refused to open her eyes. They drove home separately, silently. Eli kept one hand on the wheel as the other reached for Annika's knee, but she couldn't feel it. She felt hollowed out, as if someone had removed everything tender from her body, leaving only the shell. When they pulled into the driveway, the nursery door was still open with half-painted walls, a stack of unassembled crib components, and the little onesie she'd purchased on impulse. Yellow ducks, gender-neutral, just in case the ultrasound tech was incorrect. That night, she sat on the nursery floor and unfolded each onesie one by one, spreading them across her lap as if ironing out the future that had been cancelled. Eli found her there at 3 a.m., surrounded by soft cotton and the scent of fresh paint. He did not strive to mend anything. He simply lay down with her and held her while she shook so violently that the mobile bells jingled like wind in a storm, which no one else could hear. The following weeks were a flurry of appointments and second opinions, all of which confirmed the same soft, horrible thing. Annika kept working because stopping felt like giving up, and the set was the only place no one looked at her with sympathy yet. They still disguised the bump with large jackets and creative camera angles. On TV, Hope Logan was falling in love again. Off-screen, Annika practiced breathing through instances when strangers on Instagram inquired whether she'd found out the gender yet, or when the wardrobe department pleasantly asked if she needed larger sizes soon. She told only a few individuals. Her mother, her dearest friend from college, Catherine Kelly Lang, who had played Brooke Logan for 37 years, had witnessed every kind of grief a soundstage could contain. Catherine arrived at the house with lasagna and no counsel, just presents. They sat on the patio, watching the sun set over the hills while Annika sobbed into her wineglass of sparkling water. "It's not fair," Annika muttered. Catherine did not argue. She just answered, "No, honey, it isn't." At 24 weeks, the kicks became frenetic. Leora was running out of room, or perhaps she knew already. Annika awoke every morning and placed Eli's palm on her tummy, anxious for him to understand how she felt. This fierce, incomprehensible life that doctors had already declared over. Some nights she chatted to the baby for hours, telling her about the world she would never see. The way the Pacific looks at sunset, the scent of Eli's coffee in the morning, the sound of applause after a flawless performance. She told her about the dog they were planning to get, a scruffy mutt from the shelter that would lay at the foot of her cot. She promised her everything and nothing, since promises were all she had left to offer. They scheduled the induction for week 39. The hospital had a specific wing for this, with quiet halls, softer lighting, and social workers speaking in the measured tones of those who had rendered too many impossible verdicts. Annika prepared the hospital bag herself, the going-home suit she'd purchased months before, tiny pink roses on white cotton, the blanket her grandmother had crocheted, and the smallest beanie she could find, since even if Leora never needed warmth, Annika needed her to have it. The night before, Eli discovered her in the nursery again. She was rocking in the rocker they had purchased, her arms going back and forth out of muscle memory. He knelt in front of her, placing his forehead to hers. "I'm scared," he admitted. It was the first time he had admitted it aloud. Annika began to say she was, but her words were cut off by a sob that seemed to have been growing since the day the lines went pink. Labor was long yet thankfully simple. The nurses allowed her to stroll the halls until her contractions doubled her over. Eli held her up, murmuring the platitudes they practiced in delivery class. "You're strong, you're safe, I've got you." Even if none of it was real now. When it was time to push, Annika will never forget the silence that enveloped the room. Nobody cheered. Nobody coached. They merely created room for what was coming. Leora was born at 6:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in early November. She weighed 4 pounds and 11 ounces. Her skin was translucent, her skull was malformed as the doctors had predicted, yet her fingers were long and exquisite, curling around Annika's thumb exactly once. Eli severed the cable with shaky hands. The nurse wrapped her in the rosebud outfit and placed her in Annika's arms like any other infant, because that's what she was. Their daughter right now, for however long it lasted. They had 2 hours and 43 minutes. Annika counted each second. She observed the curvature of Leora's eyelashes, and the way her mouth puckered as if she were dreaming of milk. Eli sang the lullaby his mother had sang to him, his voice cracking with each note. They snapped images without filters or shame because these were the only ones they'd ever have. When Leora's respiration slowed and eventually stopped, the monitor never beeped. The nurses had turned it off hours before. She went away between one heartbeat and the next, as silently as if she were falling asleep. The days that followed were a white calm. Friends brought casseroles that no one ate. The tabloids hadn't caught on yet. Annika wandered through the house, touching items from a different life. The stroller still in its box, the diapers heaped like bricks for a house that would never be built. She kept Leora's blanket on the pillow next her and slept clutching it to her bosom, inhaling the aroma of hospital soap and something sweeter that was quickly fading. On the 7th day, she used her laptop for the first time. The Google alert she had set up months earlier, her name plus baby, had skyrocketed. Someone at the hospital had spoken. The headlines were harsh in their kindness. B&B star Annika Noelle gives birth to baby girl, dies soon after. There was a photograph of her leaving the hospital, her face puffy from crying, and Eli's arm the only thing holding her up. The comments underneath were a battle zone. Prayers and heart emojis clashing with strangers debating whether she should have terminated sooner. If it was heroic or dumb to carry a baby everyone knew wouldn't survive. She closed her laptop and hurled it across the room. The screen broke like bone. Weeks stretched into months. The show granted her indefinite leave. Scripts piled up on her doorway like sympathy cards she couldn't stand to open. She stopped answering the door altogether. Eli tried everything: therapists, support groups, long drives with no destination. But grief is an uncharted territory, and they were both lost in it. She overheard him in the garage lifting weights till he collapsed, punishing his body for failing to protect them. She toured the home at 3 a.m., rearranging the nursery that would never be used, folding and refolding the same 3 onesies until the creases were permanent. One morning she discovered Eli in the kitchen, looking at a bottle of her pregnant vitamins. He had not thrown them away. He could not. She removed the bottle from his grasp and poured the pills into the sink, watching them swirl down the drain like small white rafts on a river that leads nowhere. Then she sat on the floor and cried the type of tears that flow from the marrow, scaring even the crier with their endlessness. Winter came early that year. The hills became brown, and the jacarandas dropped their purple carpet too quickly. Annika's body, traitor as it was, started to heal. Her milk arrived anyway because biology does not read ultrasounds. She pumped and spilled for days, crying over the sink as the liquid gold drained away. When the milk eventually dried up, she felt the final tether snap. Leora had also left her body. They were both surprised when she laughed again. They were in their car, trapped in traffic on the 405, when a song came on the radio, one of those idiotic pop tunes they had danced to during their wedding. Eli leaned over and gripped her leg without thinking, and the sound came out like a cough. They stared at each other, afraid, waiting for guilt to punish them. It didn't arrive. Not right away. Spring attempted to occur. The jacarandas flowered anew, exuberant in their joy. Annika began walking. She walked around the block and then beyond, until she was trekking the trails above the city, where no one recognized her without makeup and fashionable clothes. She left Leora's small beanie on the summit one day, hidden beneath a boulder where the wind could find it. She did not cry. She felt closer to liberation, as if she'd set down a weight she'd sworn to carry forever but might not have to. The show called. They wanted her back. Hope Logan had been in a coma for 3 months. Soap time is flexible, and the fans were shouting. Annika answered yes, and saying no would be like letting darkness win twice. The first day on set, the wardrobe lady embraced her too long and said, "We saved all your sizes." In the makeup chair, the artist smeared concealer beneath her eyes and said nothing about the weight she dropped or the hollows in her cheeks. When the director called action, Annika performed her lines flawlessly, tear-streaked and perfect. I hope Logan awoke from her coma and forgives everyone. Off camera, Annika went to her trailer and vomited. She began penning letters that she never sent. To Leora for the most part. About the everyday miracles. The way the light hit the kitchen table at 4 p.m. The stray cat who showed up seeking food and refused to leave. The nightmare in which she forgot how to hold a baby and awoke gasping. She filled 3 journals before realizing she was keeping her daughter alive in ink because she couldn't be in her arms. A year later, almost to the day, she stood in the nursery that no longer existed. They had converted it into an office, but the storm cloud walls remained. Eli found her there with the mobile, which was supposed to play Bach or Billie Holiday. The bells were dusty. She glanced at him and said, "I think I want to try again." He did not inquire whether she was certain. He simply crossed the room and hugged her so closely that she felt his heartbeat against her ribs. The same beating that had previously filled a hospital room with unimaginable optimism. The road back was different. No pleasant announcements. No confetti. Just quiet appointments, blood draws, and the horror that lurked behind each fresh heartbeat on the sonogram. Annika did not smile when the doctor told her that everything looks perfect after 12 weeks. She waited for the but. It never arrived. On a Tuesday in November, exactly 2 years after Leora's birth, a new baby sobbed in the same hospital wing. This time the monitor beeped loudly and clearly. This time the nurses cheered. Eli cut the cord again, this time with firmer hands. They also named her Leora because certain names are promises that you keep anyway. Sage is the plant's middle name, and it means remembrance. Annika clutched her second daughter and felt the weight of two lives in her arms, the one who stayed and the one who could not. She said the same words to both. I have light. Outside the window, the jacarandas were flowering out of season, purple against a sky that had finally learned to accept both sadness and joy without choosing. She never shared the announcement. The tabloids ultimately discovered the truth. Someone always speaks, but it didn't matter. The headlines described it as a rainbow baby, a miracle and a beautiful ending. Annika called it Tuesday. She termed it breathing. She called it the toughest, most honest thing she'd ever done. Loving intensely in a world that had already shown her how easily love can break. Some nights she still awakens at 3 a.m. She walks down the corridor to check on Leora Sage, observing the rise and fall of a chest that never stops. Then she waits outside the office door, the chamber with the storm cloud walls, and listens for the echo of a heartbeat that lasted 2 hours and 43 minutes but felt like a lifetime. She doesn't cry anymore. She simply breathes in and out, carrying both the light that left and the light that remained, braided together like the two strands of a lifeline she had no idea she was capable of holding. And somewhere in the darkness, a mobile chimes softly even when no wind touches it, playing a lullaby that only a mother's heart can hear. It was a calm Friday morning in Los Angeles when the news hit social media feeds, studio halls and fan pages all across the world. Annika Noelle, the brilliant actress best known for her role as Hope Logan on The Bold and the Beautiful, had revealed a deeply personal moment that resonated far beyond television screens and red carpet appearances. In a lovely Instagram post full of sunshine and sincerity, she disclosed that she and her husband were expecting their first child. The post was basic but magnificent. Annika was photographed standing barefoot in a garden, dressed in a delicate white garment that rippled in the breeze. Her hands rested softly on her developing belly, her eyes filled with a delight that words could not express. Our greatest adventure yet, the message said, accompanied by a heart emoji and a tag for her spouse. Within minutes, the post had become viral. Fans and co-workers showered her with well wishes, love and congratulations. For long-standing Annika fans, the announcement seemed almost like witnessing a favorite character finally find peace after years of strife. Though Annika's life off-screen was private, she had occasionally revealed glimpses of her aspirations, hardships, and thankfulness for the journey she was on. To see her at this point gorgeous and eager to embrace motherhood seemed like a victory for everyone who had supported her during her early days in the entertainment industry. Annika, who was born and raised in Boston, had an early interest in stories. She studied theater and film before moving to Los Angeles, where she began landing gigs in commercials, independent films, and minor television roles. But it was her role as Hope Logan in 2018 that made her a household name. Hope, Brooke Logan's idealistic daughter, was a figure full of courage and vulnerability, and Annika gave her depth and grace. Over the years, followers have followed Hope through love triangles, heartbreaks, and successes. Annika's performance won her numerous Daytime Emmy nominations and critical acclaim for her ability to portray complicated emotional situations with natural honesty. Behind the camera, Annika's life was characterized by a quieter kind of strength. She spoke candidly on the difficulties of blending popularity with the yearning for privacy and normalcy. That's why her pregnancy announcement felt so genuine. It wasn't a marketing trick or a flashy red carpet reveal. It was intimate, pure, and authentic. She wasn't looking for attention. She was sharing a moment of joy. In an exclusive conversation a week after the news, Annika spoke freely about her journey to this point. "We've been hoping for this for a while," she continued, her eyes bright yet serene. "It's been a very personal journey for each of us, one full of optimism, patience, and gratitude. I cried when I found out. It just felt like everything was in place." She described how the first few months of her pregnancy were filled with both awe and tiredness. "I think every mom-to-be goes through that mix of emotions," she said as she chuckled. "You're excited, but you're also trying to process everything that's happening. Your body, your priorities, your routines all change. But there's so much beauty in that metamorphosis." Her husband, whom she married in a secret ceremony in front of family and close friends, has been an unwavering source of support. "He's been amazing," Annika replied enthusiastically. He is the calm in my storm. Every time I start to worry, he tells me to breathe and enjoy the moment. We've both been savoring every minute. Her co-stars from The Bold and the Beautiful were among the first to openly rejoice the news. Catherine Kelly Lang, who plays Brooke Logan, said, "I'm so pleased for you, honey. You'll be the most gorgeous mother." Scott Clifton, who plays Liam, uploaded a photo of the two laughing between takes with the message, "From TV family to real family, congrats, partner." The show's producers also issued a statement expressing their pleasure. "Annika is a cherished member of our bold and beautiful family," the statement said. "We are overjoyed for her and wish her and her family all the happiness in the world." Backstage, the cast and crew prepared a modest surprise celebration during a break in production. Annika entered the studio to discover balloons, cupcakes, and a huge congratulations banner waiting for her. "I burst into tears," she revealed. "I was not anticipating it at all. It just reminded me how fortunate I am to work with such caring, supportive colleagues."